Rise up, O flame, by thy lights glowing, bring to us beauty, wisdom, and joy. So, our story today is about Otaki. Now, Otaki set off one summer day to go and visit a friend. She had a good friend in another village that she wanted to go and visit. However, her brother, Tatanka, was feeling quite ill, so he stayed home to rest, and she put on her sun hat, got some water to bring with her, and some treats for the road, and then she set off. She began to walk down the path through the forest, and soon she came out into a beautiful meadow that was covered in wildflowers, and she could hear the birds singing and all the colors of the rainbow there in the meadow, and she knew her friend would love to have some fresh flowers, and what a nice gift to bring with her for her host. So she carefully began to pick some of the brightest flowers. She gathered 4 yellow daisies. Then she found 4 delicate purple violets. And lastly, she chose 4 bright red poppies. Now, how many flowers were in her bouquet? How many altogether? Now, she set off towards the river, and she wanted to wade across the river. And she knew in this warm day that she could do that, and it would feel very refreshing. But as she came closer to the river, she paused, for she saw on the trees some strange markings. She thought, who has been carving these trees? That's not very kind. But then, as she was looking, she saw a beaver come waddling up onto the bank and begin to gnaw at the trees. Ah, they were working to build a dam across the river. So she watched as they worked for a while and tried to be so quiet and not disturb them. And as she was watching, she saw that they had chewed on 6 big trees on her side of the river, and they had also chewed on 6 trees on the other side of the river. How many trees had they chewed on altogether? Well, just as she was about to walk away, she waded her way across the river a little further upstream so she wouldn't disturb the beavers. And as she was walking away from the river and from the trees nearby, she heard some birds chirping. And it wasn't the loud singing of the birds, but little, quiet peep, 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 peep. And she was curious, and she looked up and saw nests in the tree. And the parent birds must have been out hunting for worms, for she saw that she could carefully climb up the tree and peek into the nests. The mama wasn't there, and she could see what was in there. Now, one nest had a little baby bird that had just hatched and was peeping away and calling for its mother to come back with some worms. But next to that little baby were 4 blue eggs, quite small. And when she looked up in the tree, there was another nest. So she climbed up to that nest, and she saw that there were 4 little eggs in that one. No hatched, just 4. did she spot altogether? Both nests. What do you think? Well, she left the nest just as she had found them. She did not want to disturb them. She carefully climbed down the tree and was walking away as she saw the parents coming back with some worms for that brand new little baby. But she continued on her way, and as she walked along the pathway, she heard a very quiet. So she paused quietly too and listened more carefully. She realized it was coming from quite close to the ground. So she bent over and peered into the tall grass. And there she saw some snakes. And there was a mama snake. And she had 10 little baby snakes sunning themselves. Now, Otaki was so delighted she couldn't help but giggle. And when the snakes heard that, some of them became frightened, and they slithered away and went right down into their hole. 6 of the little snakes ran down into the hole, slithered down in fear. How many stayed out in the sun and weren't afraid at all, but wanted to catch that warm sunshine? So she continued on her way, but she was feeling a bit hungry now. So she found a spot with some soft moss, and she sat down and made herself comfortable and took out her lunch. And with her lunch, her father had packed her a whole little bowl of berries. Fresh, sweet blueberries. She had 12 big, juicy berries in her bowl. Well, she was just about to pop the first one in her mouth when who did she see? But some chipmunks. And the chipmunks were watching her. There were 3 little chipmunks. And they were all lined up and watching her with very hungry eyes. Well, she could not help herself. She had to share those berries with them. Now she looked at the berries and looked at the chipmunks and thought, how could I share these evenly? Yes, how could I split these evenly? There's one of her and 3 chipmunks. And if she shared those 12 berries evenly, how many would each of them get? Now, she was getting quite close to the other village. And so she decided not to stray from the path any more, but to continue on her way. But she couldn't help her eyes seeing many things and noticing many things. And there, right before her on the path, were some beautiful stones. And as she walked, she couldn't help but collect these. She thought they would be a nice thing to share with her friend along with the flowers. So she kept her eyes peeled. She saw some very dark black ones. They were so shining in the sun. So she chose 3 of those black stones. And some of the stones had a little bit of crystal in them and glittered in the sunshine. And she chose 4 of those sparkling stones. And she saw a few that were gray, but had a white stripe across them, like a decorated egg. And she thought, I can not resist those either. And so she took 2 of the striped stones. If she had 3 black ones, 4 sparkling ones, and 2 striped stones. How many stones did she end up with in her pockets? Enough that she felt they were very full and she couldn't fit any more in. And now she was getting very near her friend's house. Friend lived up at the top of a hill. And on the way up the hill, there were stone staircase. And she was in such a rush and so excited to see her friend, she wanted to go so quickly, she just stepped on every other step. She went up 2 at a time. Now, if she only put her foot down 7 times, how many steps were there? Now she had arrived at her friend's home, who was so happy to see her that they played all afternoon. And they had a wonderful dinner. They were having so much fun. They didn't want to stop. So Otaki stayed over for a sleepover. And they had fun giggling late into the nighttime. Snip, snap, snout, his tail is told.